Welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls Podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, theories, and more.
I'm Lexi, older sister and fantasy lore nerd.
And I'm Nicole, younger sister and romantic at heart.
And today is episode 11 of Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, where we are covering chapters 56 through 61.
Yes, it was originally only going to be up to chapter 60, but we realized how much more sense it would make to include chapter 61 in today's episode instead of waiting.
So, before we begin, listen closely to our spoiler warning. This is episode 11, and we're almost to the end of the book, so you should know by now that every episode has spoilers for the entire Empyrean series, including all of Onyx Storm, Iron Flame, and Fourth Wing.
Meera dies! Just kidding. But if you don't know what I mean by that fake out, then please go finish Onyx Storm. We will be here when you're done.
Which is why we are wearing these shirts today, because we lost a bet with our friends at Flights of Fantasy.
Yes, mine is Daddy Atos. It says Codex on one side and World's Best Dad on the other.
And mine, it says Jack Barlo, fan club president, with an orange, as well as Long Live Jack. Touché, Flights of Fantasy podcast. We lost this bet because we thought that Meera was going to die, and they did not think she was going to die. We made a bet about it. Onyx Storm came out. We totally thought we won this bet at the end of one of these chapters, and then we kept reading, and here we are.
And here we are with these shirts on our backs.
Next, we of Fantasy Fangirls are adults who say adult things about adult books. In other words, friends, this podcast is rated R.
I never thought I'd be saying this, but we finally made it to Eyes Here GFDD. And no, I'm not talking about Daddy Atos. I'm talking about a very different kind of daddy. So please be mindful of those little listening ears.
Additionally, we are so excited to see you at upcoming live events. We will be featured guests at Enchanticon in St. Louis, Missouri, August 15th through 17th.
We will be at the Everflame Ball along with Penn Cole for the first ever Kindred's Curse Saga Ball on August 30th in Castle Rock, Colorado. Then we will also be back for the Dragon Gauntlet in Boyne City, Michigan, September 12th through 13th.
Then Romantasy BookCon in Orlando, Florida, October 23rd through 25th, where we're interviewing Rebecca Yarros again at Disney World. I'm so excited, I can't say it enough.
Check out our website or the links below for all the information to these awesome events.
Last thing before we jump into this Onyx Storm episode 11, if you love Fantasy Fangirls and want more events, more content, more community, and just so much more all around, please check out Fantasy Fan Club.
We have 3 tiers that you can join. Number 1, the Cadets, which includes access to our Boppin' Discord, live Q&As from Lexi and I, a book club, exclusive author interviews. We actually just released a little snippet from our interview with Penn Cole, community events like our Onyx Storm trivia next weekend. I'm so excited. Promo codes to live events, plus 20% off all merch, which is just now getting a revamp. Ayo! That is for $6 a month. Or the next tier is the Dragon Riders, which includes everything from the cadet level, plus early access to ad-free episodes, our full episode outlines, and special voting privileges. You actually just recently helped me pick a scene for Lexi to read on the Q&A that just happened. It was a spicy scene, and it was fabulous. I'm so excited.
Real quickly, the best part about it is that it is from my Cassian, and yet you're making my husband sit next to me as I read it.
Well, because if it was just Cassie, that would have been too easy. So I had to add an extra element for it.
I'm never going to live this down from him. Like, this is just like the gift that just keeps on giving.
Considerable length indeed. The Dragon Riders is $10 a month. And last but not least, we have the Iron Squad, which includes everything I've mentioned from the previous 2 tiers, plus more behind the scenes content, a welcome gift. You also get giveaways and a private Discord channel that is just my favorite channel on the Discord. It's amazing. And also your name shouted out on the podcast. That is for $25 a month. My goodness, there's so much stuff.
Join the party at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes. And really and truly, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for supporting us as we've turned this podcast into a dream come true. It's all because of you, and we appreciate you so much.
And now it is time to fly into our final battle of Onyx Storm.
To start off every episode, Nicole does us the honor of summarizing what happens in this stretch of chapters. So listen up because Battle Brief is in session for chapters 56 through 61 of Onyx Storm.
Chapter 56. It's dream walking time again, but this time Violet is able to separate herself from Dream Zaden in a matter of seconds. She's learning! But the sage has other plans, and after a quick hey there, hi there, ho there, he leaves Violet with a cryptic, "You come or she dies. What is with everyone and just using pronouns?" After successfully waking both herself and Zaden up, the two lovebirds finally have an uninterrupted conversation about second signets. Just kidding. Garrick pounds on the door with a message. Theophony has reached the walls of Drathus and she has Meera. Dun, dun, dun. Chapter 57. Tensions are high as leadership figures out what the fuck to do next. Between saving Meera, defending Drathus, and protecting the past, there just isn't enough resources to do all three. And add into account that half the assembly doesn't want the cadets to join the party, because that always works out so well when you tell college kids no. Having to make the impossibly hard choice to just pick one objective, Violet starts to realize with the not at all laden with dramatic irony lesson about how hard it is to be in leadership. But knowing that this is the only way, Violet puts on her brilliant fucking woman pants and picks a mysterious fourth option. Kill Theophony. Chapter 57. It is time to save our favorite fantasy older sister, and damn is Violet cutting it close to the deadline. Approaching where Theophony has Meera, Violet notes the chains binding Tiny and the bruises that cover Meera's face. If Theophony hadn't signed her own death warrant before, she sure as shit did now! Theophony decides that it's the perfect time to make a jab at Berwin for having his secret spilled so easily to Jack Barlo. And then she goes on and monologues about her own evil Venin plans. Oh, the irony is rich. According to Theophony, Violet will turn. But before Theophony can explain more, Garrick poofs into existence with the ribostad chest and Lexi's favorite character so much that she's wearing a shirt devoted to him, Jack fucking Barlo. He's tucked all nice and cozy inside the chest. Now, our crew has upheld their end of the bargain, so it's time for the Venin to leave. Right? Right? Nope. Because Theophony is a liar, pants on fire, and she draws her blade across Meera's neck. Chapter 59. Violet rushes into the dying Meera's side, and it's a damn good thing Big Brother Brennan, Mender Extraordinaire, is here to help. Looking up from her siblings, Violet sees utter chaos. Dragons and wyverns clashing together in a mash of claws and teeth. Zaden's shadows forming a protective barrier, and Garrick and Bodie tucking Jack fucking Barlo safely back into the chest and distance walking him away. But Brennan is struggling to mend Meera, and right before all hope is leaving, Dane and Sloan appear. Help is on the way to drop off Aric's mail. Pleading with everything she has, Violet convinces a very troubled Sloan to transfer power from Dane to Brennan. And thank the gods it works. Meera's wounds close up, leaving behind a nasty scar to show for it. But hey, at least she's breathing. Who's not breathing? All of us, because eyes here, Daddy Dane has arrived! After Meera's healed, everyone takes off their separate ways, and Zaden gives Violet the ever so helpful advice of do not die. How romantic. Chapter 60. Houston, we have a problem. Tiny's still not waking up, and Garrick is too exhausted to poof him up the cliffs. So it's a very good thing that Violet has a plan. Taryn can take him and leave Violet alone on the ground. Nothing bad can come from the largest dragon leaving the bait Theophony wants unguarded, right? Oh, and would you look at that? Theophony has arrived, and she is not happy about her dead wyvern. But Theophony doesn't stop there. Oh no, she gives both Bodie and Violet a very interesting look into her plans and ideas for the both of them. The Venin bestie is done talking, so she begins to wield her lightning signet. Oh no, Theophony's been hiding a secret. She's not a lightning wielder. She wields storms. Chapter 61, POV change. And this time it's not Zaden, but it's our favorite non-Venin bestie, Rionan. Back at the Madaro Pass, Rhi is doing everything in her power to protect the valley leading into Drathus. Battling with her own insecurities, Rionan slips on her squad leader mask and launches into the sky with the remainder of Second Squad. After enough sass from Fierg to rival Andarna, Rhi and Second Squad launch into an attack with the wyvern, and Fierg takes the bitch down! It's practically yelling, timber! Rhi looks up to get a visual check on the rest of the squad, only to see Riddic freezing a wyvern from the inside out. Yet another thing he can add to his list of things that make him more fuckable.
A quick break to tell you about today's sponsor, Ritual. Oh goodness, stress. We all have it, especially Ree here. My goodness, having to be a squad leader with her friends. There's no off switch for daily stress, but you can take control of supporting your body's response to it. With Ritual's stress relief featuring BioSeries technology, you can support your body's natural cortisol response for all-day support.
Ritual has become a part of my every single day. From the stress relief BioSeries to also probiotics that taste like vanilla mint. They're delicious. I never knew I needed my vitamins to taste so yummy.
Stress Relief BioSeries technology is designed to optimize the release of a trio of clinically studied ingredients to help the body manage stress. And remember, Ritual is designed to reduce stress daily and over time with consistent use.
The juggle is real. Don't just respond to stress. Get ahead of it with stress relief from Ritual. Get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/FFG. Start Ritual or add stress relief to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/FFG for 25% off.
All right, writers, it is time to don our signet power and discuss key insights, character analysis, lore, foreshadowing theories, and so much more. Is it deja vu or another Zaden dream we're walking into? Violet/Zaden is back in the field in front of Drathus with the battle by the Spiral Tower underway. Violet is in Zaden's mind as he thinks about how he'll never reach Terran closer to the city because he's too far away, but Terran is his only chance at finding Violet. Zaden is glad about the storm right now because it gives Violet the edge she needs to wield lightning. Blue and green flames are engulfing the guard walls of the city, and Zaden thinks how he should get there so he can put them out with his shadows. But that's when Violet, in her own subconscious, pauses because she's like, wait, I don't wield shadows. Zaden does. And for the first time, she recognizes that she is in Zaden's dream, which leads to her leveling up in her dreamwalking skills, apparently. As Zaden will soon say, she's figured this out pretty quickly.
There's this moment where Violet says, quote, "Awareness prickles the back of my neck." And it's this type of phrasing that was used so often when Zaden would walk into a room or when he was using his intrinsic signet back on her in Fourth Wing. Well, I definitely do not think that it's anything of Zaden using his signet in this dream. A, because she hasn't snapped into her own body by the time she says this, and also B, that he can't wield in dreams. It's just a nice little comparison from book one. As you go back and read the books, you're like, oh my God.
Then Violet feels that snap across the back of her/Zaden's skull. And suddenly, she's no longer part of Zaden. She is her own person, standing separately from Zaden and able to talk with him. So now Violet is not inside Zaden's dream mind and able to read his thoughts as if she's him. Now she is separate from him within his own dream. Oh my gosh. This feels like Inception with all this dream walking and mind reading, and it's going to get confusing in later books. I just already know it. Zaden's surprised to see Violet here in his dream, insisting he can't keep her safe and she shouldn't be here. When Violet takes Dream Zaden's ice-cold hands, she's startled she can feel them. Another nugget of info for us to pay attention to with her dream walking ability.
And another piece of foreshadowing that they will be able to touch each other in future dreams. Sexually! Yes! I'm convinced it's happening.
But when Violet asks what keeps Zaden in this dream, Berwin the Sage answers that he is the one keeping Zaden in this dream. I wonder if he literally keeps Zaden here and directs this dream, like we were talking about last episode with maneuvering his subconscious, and part of that is keeping him locked in this nightmare. I guess the more and more I think about it, the more it feels possible for a dreamwalker to indeed be able to do that. I'll be curious how Violet will use it for good, where it isn't a nightmare form, but she does still have to orchestrate this subconscious here, but again, for good purposes. Berwin can clearly see Violet in Zaden's dream here as well, greeting her with a creepily on point, quote, "It's so nice of you to join us, lightning wielder," or should I call you dreamwalker?
This right here is such a big hint for us that makes us believe that Berwin is also that dreamwalker, because it feels like that takes one to know one vibe, or should I say that calls to vibe.
I wonder if he's going to try to use Violet against Zaden next book via dreamwalking.
I could see him going into her dreams. Maybe Berwin has an easy connection to Zaden because he's a sage, but also if he's also a dreamwalker, I don't know.
Violet persists, trying to get Zaden to wake up and get out of this dream as the sage tightens an invisible hand around Zaden's throat like he tends to do in these nightmares. But again, Berwin says that Zaden can't wake up. He can't leave this dream. Continuing to Violet, quote, "And here I'd hope you'd be a quick learner. How disappointing." Then he directs his attention back to Zaden, quote, "You lost something I wanted, but you will bring her." Here's where he's being all vague again. I believe he's speaking of Andarna as what was lost. The Venin want the Irid as Theophony has demonstrated. Then the her he says Zaden will bring is probably Violet, given the context in this dream, instead of Sigale, who is more of the threat to lure Zaden versus the outcome, the prize like Violet is.
He mentions how he will be a more merciful teacher than Theophony. And two things here. Number one, I would say I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually totally can believe I'm saying this. Theophony would be 1000% a better teacher than Berwin because he's demonstrated how to kill dragons like an asshole. Not saying that she wouldn't, even though she promised Violet that she would let her keep both of her dragons, yada, yada, yada. But as we know, Venin lie. Maybe I just trust her more. I don't know. She's the Venin bestie. I don't know what it is. And number two, this merciful teacher language gets me thinking, if Zaden does go off with the Venin, more specifically Berwin next book, because again, we don't have that confirmed, will Berwin be a full mentorship role for Zaden? Because I don't see Zaden willingly going, like how Violet is with Felix. Like, I don't see him willingly going near Berwin. But if Berwin can call Zaden, I don't know. It's just something to think about.
Violet starts to reach for power, but then stops herself because she realizes this is a dream, leaving us wondering what would have happened if she tried to draw her power from Terran. The fact that we were interrupted makes me very suspicious that something would have happened, despite Zaden's magic not working in his dreams. Ah, and here we have Inception magic, because I bet her dreams would work in someone else's dreams. Even though their magic does not work in the dreams. Remembering that the only way to wake up is to feel pain in the dream, Violet goes to reach for her thigh, but there's only a smooth layer of leather. Berwin the Sage continues. Theophony's right about him. He does love to talk. He's done waiting. They may have raised the Oresian wards, but they won't save Zaden. If he won't deliver, quote, her, then she will come herself, meaning Violet. Because if Violet doesn't come, quote, she dies, meaning Meera. They've got Meera, and if Violet doesn't come on her own, then Meera will die.
Again, it's showing us that Berwin is using this, assumably, dream-walking power to send messages to Zaden and thus also to Violet. It's a teaser of what Violet can do when she hones the second signet. She might be able to send messages to Melgrin, King Towery, like these people. That would be so cool.
Thinking how if this was her dream, she knows that she would be armed. So Violet feels for a dagger at her hip and, there is a dagger. So to cause herself pain to wake up, she drives it into her arm, successfully jolting out of the dream. This dagger being there brings up another possibility of dreamwalking. Can she think things into existence when she's dreamwalking? Like in this case, it was, I should have a dagger, so therefore she does have a dagger.
This is everything. This. So in her dream, she not only can meddle, but she can literally manifest things into existence. What could this mean? I have no idea, but god damn it, I'm so excited. Oh my god.
She's got a room of requirement in other people's dreams.
Yes! Oh my god, I'm so excited. Now, there is this big question associated with this ability. Indarna's gone. How the fuck is she able to use the signet? I'm still leaning towards our top contender of the bond only being like 99% severed, but because it went so deep, it was likely not able to be cut completely like Leothan thought. So Indarna is still, I'm going to say unknowingly, because I don't think she knows, is still unknowingly channeling into her.
Plus, with her being an Irid, there's such bigger magic than the, I'll call it usual dragon magic at play here. It goes deeper for the bond. It has a stronger attachment with the bond and things like that. Like in the big battle when Terran is gone, Violet can't wield her lightning when he's not in range. So even if she and Indarna were still bonded and Indarna was just out of range temporarily, it's my understanding that Violet should not be able to use her second signet, which brings the fact that she's Irid front and center. Her magic works differently, and I think it's all interconnected to why Violet was also able to communicate with her dragons and wield on the Isles without magic. It's how she's still able to use her second signet here, even with the bond technically severed. Though, yes, I am absolutely convinced it's not completely severed because Leothan underestimates just how deep these bonds go.
But there is another option I'll throw out there. As Zaden says, once they both wake up, maybe the power is gone, but the ability still remains. It's almost like when you go Venin, you still have your signet, even if you lose your dragon. Possibly. We don't know that for sure.
Right, because we technically don't know if that is true. The only Venin we know who was a writer and has a dead dragon is Jack, and we still don't know what his signet is, if he still has it.
But I do wonder, because they still have a power source, like for instance, for the Earth, it would be the Venin. For Terran, it would be Violet. The ability still remains. It just changes the power source for it.
It's definitely a possibility, yeah.
I'm still leaning toward option one, but I'm going to throw that out as an option two to, like, I don't know, make it make sense.
I also wonder if this is when maybe Andarna was able to feel Violet using her signet.
Yeah.
And it was a moment of realization for Andarna to be like, oh my gosh, like I am still connected to her. This wasn't severed. And it makes Andarna really realize how much deeper their bond does go. I know we keep repeating that, but that's the best way to put it. Because from here, Andarna is going to arrive in approximately 6 hours. Don't quote me on that, but approximately 6 hours. She's been gone for a few weeks. So how would she get from wherever she is, where she's been flying to for several weeks, let's say it's the den or even halfway to the den or whatever, she would have to return within 6 hours. So
timeline-wise, I don't really know if that actually adds up. So
she'd have to have been closer. What I'm trying to say is I feel like she would have had to be closer to Violet so that she could appear within those 6 hours if she felt the bond, and that is what made her turn around.
We don't know if Andarna could have flown to the Irid Isle because she was hooked into Terran for some of the flight for the Isles. But so I do wonder for that reason if Leothin and Darna are staying on the continent. Maybe they're around like the Corden area, but they're just completely blended in to the surroundings. And they're starting with their magic just on the continent until her wing gets better. And then that's when he was like, okay, then we'll fly to the Irids. Plus then it'll give the Irids enough time to, know, like, and trust her and all that kind of stuff. So I do wonder if Leothin's like, let's buy some time on the continent before we go to like get your ways a little more iridified before we, introduce you to the clan. That timeline wise makes more sense. Because if not, then Andarna would have had to turn around not long after she left.
Yep.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't know. But another reason that she could be dreaming this right now is because Andarna is getting closer.
Oh, that's another point there too. Yes. Anyway, we're talking about second signets, so you know what that means. An interrupting knock on the door. I love how Violet's like, well, it's too early for this to be good news. It's like, oh dear, is she right or what? Yeah. Garrick looks like shit and jumps right into an explanation. We've known that he and Meera have both been on the front lines, and we've recently learned how the line is retreating further and further back, getting closer and closer to Drathus. So they were on patrol when, quote, she found them. Garrick tried his best, but he wasn't strong or fast enough to combat her. Quote, she ripped us straight out of the sky like a pair of pigeons on a windstorm. Ah, yes, Theophony. How is it that we still aren't supposed to know she's a storm wielder? In hindsight, it feels so obvious, but that's the beauty of unreliable narration. Theophony let Garrick go to deliver a message. Dang, this is the second time he has walked away from her because she let him go.
He is the second luckiest person in this series, only surpassed by Riddic. Truly.
But Theophony's done waiting and playing games, just like Berwin said he was in the dream Zaden and Violet just experienced. So she's ensuring her message gets to Violet loud and clear. You hear that, Garrick? Loud and clear. Along with proof that she has Meera and is not messing around.
This message is that the Venin have reached the walls of Drathus. What? How did they get here so fast? In the last 24 hours-ish, it looks like all the Venin have surged towards the city, ignoring everything else and all of the other cities in their path. And just in case that threatening this huge Peromish city isn't enough, Theophony says that the crew has only 5 hours to bring Bodie and Violet, or she dies. Earlier, we mentioned how in Zaden/Violet's dream, Berwin addressed Violet, who at this point had already snapped out of being Zaden, and said, quote, it's simple, Dreamwalker. You come or she dies. Violet, in the dream, had no idea who the she is that Berwin is referring to. Only after seeing Tiny's scale will she realize that the she is Meera. Now, these dreams, while eerily accurate, Zaden and Violet haven't really been taking them as fact yet. After all, Berwin is supposed to be dead. So this moment is kind of like oh, fuck, there's some connection that should not be happening. So when Garrick now repeats the same line of she dies, it's this clue for Violet that, hey, these dreams, Berwin is using them as a messenger. And yet they still didn't click that he's alive. It's fine. Just like Theophony is using Garrick as her messenger. And as much as we love Garrick, this game of telephone is not going very well. Because Garrick says that they want to see Bodie, Zaden, and Violet, or else Meera dies. Violet questions, like so many of us, why do they want Bodie? Poor Bodie, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Turns out that Theophony said to bring Zaden's brother. So naturally, Garrick thought Bodie. And as Trissa points out later in the assembly chamber, it would be the fastest way to wipe out Tyrandor's ruling line. Side note, I cannot wait to see how Violet Sorrengail takes the assembly down a peg next book. I'm so excited. After all, the only other person who would fulfill the word brother is Liam. And The way my heart stopped beating thinking that we were going to get another Liam cameo is inconceivable, but it's fine. No, that didn't happen. Zaden notes how Venin do not care about lineage or succession. How does Zaden know this? Is it from one of his convos with Jack? Is it just a guess? After all, like the Venin have kind of developed their own family, so is it just a guess from that? And I mean, I guess Jack fucking Barlo called Zaden brother at the end of Iron Flame, so yes, they are referring to Jack, but how does he know that?
I feel like it's also just a pattern with what they've been experiencing. Like, for instance, how they've been taking down all the Peromish cities. And, like, their targets have not been strategic when it comes to lineage or things along those lines. So that's my understanding.
Oh, okay.
But they also just don't know a whole lot about Venin, not nearly as much as they kind of think they do.
I also just want to point out this one thing. As it comes to Bodie and assuming that he was the brother in mention, this is yet another circumstance of Bodie being connected to the word brother. There's so much foreshadowing for him being the Venin at the end of the book, and yet I'm still confused because we'll get to that next episode. I'm getting ahead of myself because right now Violet is not thinking about any of this brother or anything like that. Instead, she focuses on the giant shield on Garrick's back.
And this is when it dawns on Violet that it isn't actually a shield like she initially thought. It's a scale from Tiny, Meera's green dragon, proving that Theophony does indeed have Meera and her dragon.
We'll get into this meeting in just a moment, but first, a quick word from our sponsor, Function. Health is so important, but it can be easy to let important health maintenance slip through the cracks. But now I'm testing with Function throughout the year, and I actually just got my results back, and wow, oh my God, it told me a lot about me. Function is an all-in-one health platform that starts with over 100 advanced lab tests. It's covering your entire body, from heart, hormones, liver, kidney, thyroid, autoimmunity, cancer signals, toxins, nutrients, and so much more. Literally so much more.
Function Health is about taking control of your health through data. Instead of guessing what's happening inside your body, Function helps you know for sure. Your first set of tests help establish a baseline of your health, giving you a starting point to compare future tests against. This makes it easy to spot changes, even subtle ones, and address them proactively.
Health is universal. Like I just mentioned, I recently got my health results back and so much was in the green. It was looking great. Hooray. So exciting. And there were a few that my doctor and I are definitely keeping an eye on that I never would have expected to be in the red. This is honestly a sponsor that I am preaching to everyone I meet now. It's amazing. Health is universal. Function Health is for anyone who wants to understand their body better and make more informed decisions for a longer, healthier life. Function currently has a wait list, but they are offering our audience the chance to skip it. Huzzah! Head to functionhealth.com/FFG and enter code FFG when signing up to skip the waitlist. Smash cut to a war prep meeting. Unlike the controlled and structured battle brief prior to the attack on Bezgaeth at the end of last book, this meeting in the assembly chamber contains basically all of Second Squad, Kaori, Zaden, Garrick, Brennan, Felix, and Trissa. And unsurprisingly, this amalgamation of a vast range of ranks is just chaos. The questions start flying. Where should they fly first? Is Meera even still alive? There are thousands of people climbing the Madaro Pass right now from Drathus to Erasia. If they don't go to help Drathus, all those people are dead. But there's only 10 dragons/riders now stationed at Drathus, plus an unknown number of Nightwing Drift Griffins/flyers against hundreds of Wyvern and at least a dozen Dark Wielders. This battle is so fucking skewed in the Venin's favor, it is not even funny.
There's too many objectives with this impending Drathus attack that feel vital to accomplish, and too few riders to actually be able to have a chance at achieving all of them. Objective number 1, save and rescue Meera from Theophony's clutches. This one feels like a given as a necessity to succeed. This is Violet and Brennan's sister, and even though Meera is only one person, she is too important to two decision makers. No way in hell will Violet ever let her sister die. Objective number 2, defend the city of Drathus. Thousands of civilians are evacuating the city to hike up the Madaro Pass, but if the city falls too quickly, they'll all be targeted before they can get to safety. So it's important to defend the city because that's where everyone is coming from, and keeping the Venin from overthrowing the city gives people more time to get out and get to safety. Objective number 3, protect the Madaro Pass where everyone is evacuating to. Remember that this is the same pass that the Dragon Rider and Griffin Flyer cadets hiked up from Corden to Orisha. Among other reasons for the hike, it was one way for the flyers to gain credibility among the riders, with this pass serving as their version of the parapet. And yes, it proved to be deadly and very difficult for trained athletes. We can only imagine what it must be like for civilians of all ages and conditions. If the people going up the pass aren't protected from the incoming wyvern attack, then they'll all die despite their best efforts to evacuate. Our side just doesn't have enough reinforcements with only 10 riders plus the Nightwing Drift, as well as second and third year cadets who volunteer to fight too. Brennan can hope for maybe 2 objectives with this number of riders and flyers, but going after all 3 feels like an impossible task when they're already stretched so thin.
That's when it dawns on Zaden. This is the battle that Melgren was warning him about. Quick go back in time to chapter 55, when Zaden and Bodie were fighting, and then Zaden and Violet talked about how Zaden is preparing for his own demise. Zaden admits in that chapter that Melgren saw a battle where they flew in and lost, which I guess is actually kind of interesting that Melgren is relaying this information to Zaden, when Zaden is basically saying fuck you to all of Navarian royalty, and Melgren still did that. That was nice. But maybe not so nice because he didn't offer any help, but it was still nice to share that info. But Zaden, thinking that it was the battle that Leothan flew into and saved the day, is like, cool, great, thanks dude, you're a little too late on that. But it was not that battle. Instead, it is this one, the one in Drathus. Now pause if you're thinking, how the hell did Melgren see this failed battle when he can't see any battles that have 3 or more marked ones in it? Allow me to explain. And this actually is cool because it gives us some possible info onto how Auric's signet might work. Melgren saw only one version of this battle. This version only included officers, which means Zaden and Garrick, which means only Zaden and Garrick for marked ones, so they're under that limit of 3, which means that if they had gone into the battle the way that Trissa and Felix wanted to, with only officers, they would have lost bad. This also means that because Melgren proclaimed this battle a defeat, he refused to send any aid.
I wonder if this was Melgren's strategy in giving Zaden a heads up. Number 1, warning him that the version he saw means they'll lose, so in between the lines, he's saying they need to change their tactic. And number 2, simultaneously, Melgren certainly doesn't want to send reinforcements in to help Tyrrendor open its borders to the people of Drathus. Things are so tense between Navarre and Tyrrendor, so by declaring this battle a loss, it's an excuse not to send forces and these Poromish evacuees.
But because Melgren only saw that one variation/option, it doesn't take into account what would happen if all the cadets joined the officers, which would include more than 3 marked ones. So I think that Melgren can see multiple options of battles depending on the strategy. But with the marked ones, they blocked this ability to see beyond just that one option, which means going to Auric's signet now. Auric might be able to see multiple options too, and he gets to choose which one makes the most, I'm going to call it, makes the most sense.
I genuinely have no idea. I guess I was under the impression Auric only sees one. That is only a complete assumption, something that I was just guessing. And it sure seems to be more beneficial than anything else that Melgren might have, because it doesn't have the same restrictions as Melgren's between the protective rune blocking his signet from working with more than 3 marked ones, and only getting to see the outcome of battle. I don't know. I feel like maybe he just sees the actual thing that is going to happen. Violet wants Brennan to use her for this battle plan. Theophony doesn't want to kill her after all, and she's the best weapon against the Venin and Wyvern with her lightning wielding. So let her rescue Meera, and then she can station herself between Drathus and the pass that the civilians are climbing up in order to get within the safety of Orisha's wards. That way she can wield in both directions. This is such a Violet self-sacrificial way of thinking. She feels like she has to do it all. She is ready to single-handedly achieve all 3 objectives: save Meera, protect Drathus, and protect the thousands of people fleeing from the city. But, as Brennan explains once he kicks most everyone else out of the room, that's just not how this realistically works. No matter how powerful Violet's signet is, using her as a primary defense for all 3 objectives is not possible and will set them up to fail. As Brennan will tell her, quote, "You will choose everyone over yourself, and he, Zaden, will choose you over everyone. The only way they're going to walk out of this trap that Theophony has set specifically for Violet is if she doesn't fall for it. And Theophony knows Violet and knows she feels obligated to do it all. She knows that this is what Violet wants to do.
So Violet, you must pick one objective to go after if we're all going to walk out of this on the other side. Welcome to the new level, new devil of leadership, where your decision of one will impact the lives of thousands. No pressure or anything. Violet is a cadet still in a room of writers, so naturally she asks the question on everyone's mind. Why me? And Brennan doesn't really hold back his answer. It's because he doesn't think she can. He believes her "I can save everyone" attitude will actually be what gets them all killed. So this is a great foreshadowing of prep for her as a leader. I think this one outcome is definitely going to come back into play, where either Violet ignores the one outcome rule and goes after as many as she feasibly can, which could either go very well or actually go terribly, and then maybe it's her first time she fails as a leader. But here, Brennan is asking her to instead make a decision that he truly believes she is unable to make. Option 1, choose to go after only Meera and save our sister. Option 2, save the city of Drathus. Option 3, save the pass.
But our brilliant fucking woman is not going to play within Brennan's perimeters. She chooses a fourth option, kill Theophony. After all, it's the objective with the biggest impact. Theophony is hunting Violet and setting this trap for her. Without Theophony, there is no trap to ensnare Violet. Theophony is the most powerful Venin leading this attack and the one threatening Meera's life. If Violet can distract Theophony and keep her occupied, then she won't focus her attention and power on the ongoing attack. At least one of these Sorrengail siblings live up to their title as brilliant strategists.
I literally wrote in my notes, Brennan, you suck at your job. Why? Remember back during our flight maneuver section 2 episodes ago, we discussed how Aric's strategy showcased his brilliant thoughts. Well, now we are seeing just how similar him and Violet truly are. During flight maneuvers, Auric didn't attack the projection. He attacked Professor Kaori, who was making the projection. Here, Violet is looking at what is causing this battle to take place. At the center of all of it is Theophony. So yes, if she goes after Theophony, odds are the rest of the battle tumbles down like dominoes, and they're preventing future battles like this. I'm so sorry, Brennan, brilliant strategist. It is wild that you don't think this way, my guy. Jeez!
But at least Brennan does come up with a new plan now that Violet provided a fourth objective for herself. And while this plan is never outright said, this is at least what I gather from it. Violet goes after Theophony to distract her, to keep her occupied, and to kill her. Zaden, Bodie, and Brennan will go with her to help rescue Meera. Other riders will position the alloy-hilted daggers they have here to extend Orisha's wards to Drathus. Alloy powers wards and draws them out further, so that's their objective, to create these wards around Drathus as well. Why have they not focused on this earlier? I don't know, but moving on. Some second squad riders and flyers will protect the pass. That is what we will see from Rhee's POV chapter. Officers on the front lines will defend the city, and between Violet focused on their leader with the extra powerful signet, the goal of getting the wards up, and split forces including the cadets to defend the city and protect the pass, they might be able to make this work.
Maybe.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Listen, therapy can feel like a big investment, but the state of your mind is just as important as your physical health. Let's talk numbers. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, which really adds up fast. But with BetterHelp Online Therapy, you can save on average up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and on time. Your mental health is worth it, and now it's within reach.
I cannot talk about the benefits of therapy enough. I will be talking about it probably until the day I die. She knows exactly what to say, and it's never what I think she's going to say, because I always go in being like, I know Taylor's going to say this. And then she says something else, and I immediately write it down because I'm like, grr, that's so good. Man, I didn't think of that myself.
With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. It's so convenient, too. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/FFG to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/FFG. Drathus is a 4-hour flight from Orisha, though Terran makes it in only 2 hours, and Sigale, Kir, who is Bodhi's dragon, and Marp, who is Brennan's dragon, make it in 3.5 hours.
Which leads us to a quick travel math. Not so quick, actually. Which leads us to a lengthy travel math, because these numbers basically make no sense given our current calculation of speed. We know that Sigale and other dragons can fly at 42.6 miles per hour, which means if they're flying for 3.5 hours, they go 149 miles. But if Terran's normal flying speed is around 48 miles per hour and he flies 2 hours, he's only going 96 miles versus the 149 for the other dragons. So I am going to make some stuff up to make this make sense. We're going to chalk this up to Terran is flying faster than normal and Sigale is slowing herself down for Marb and Brennan. Because or else travel math has been completely wrong this entire time and I refuse to let that happen on episode 11.
Well, wait a second, because I was just under the impression that Terran was flying extra fast because of everything going on, and he felt the need to help Violet get to Drathus as fast as possible.
So I did do the calculations for that. If he was flying extra fast and going 149 miles, he would instead be going like 64 miles per hour versus his normal 48 miles per hour. That is quite the jump in speed. So it's not out of the question. It's just definitely he is really pumping on the gas. Terran's dragon math is actually calculated from some information we learned in Fourth Wing. I did the Samara for Sigale's dragon math coming in when we learned the math of the other dragons. So all of this to say, Sigale, we're just going to say, is flying at 36 miles per hour because she's used to flying at griffin speed, and Terran is pumping it at 63 miles per hour, and which means we're going to meet in the middle mile-wise, and they're going 126 miles to Drathus from Eratia, or 202.7 kilometers. It's also just a little bit longer than the width of Portugal west to east. So there's my made-up travel math. You're welcome.
All right, we're going to set the stage for this final showdown at Drathus, a Poromish city located in the western part of the Krova province. I also realized I think that was your last travel map. It was steep dive.
All of this to say, the city itself of Drathus sits on an intermontane plateau, which if you're like me and you're like, what the fuck's an intermontane plateau? Allow me to explain. It's basically a huge plateau surrounded by a mountain range that is already in the mountains. So for example, if you know Colorado, you can drive up into the mountains and you'll come across these huge plains looking area. Not plains like plain like by the wind comes sweeping down the plain, that kind of plain. So, and you're surrounded in these plains by even more mountains. So basically Drathus is just a huge fighting pit created by nature. It's a plateau that spans a couple dozen miles, and Drathus is on the southwestern edge and it's surrounded by more mountains, even though it's already in the mountains.
The fields east of eastern Drathus are covered in hordes of wyvern, far more than our crew estimated. These wyvern are attacking the lines of dragons and griffins stationed between the guard stands along the city walls, and our side is drastically outnumbered, and this immediately feels unwinnable. However, these wyvern are not attacking Violet, Terran, Zaden, Sigale, Bodie, Cure, Brennan, and Marb as they descend from the cliffs of Draylor, which is west of the city. And they're not attacking the thousands of evacuees heading toward the Madaro Pass outside the city's western gates. So as of right now, the wyvern attack is only focused on the eastern side. I believe this is illustrating just how much of a trap this is for Violet. Theophony is luring her in to try to rescue her sister and then save everyone when the attack truly breaks out.
Our crew flies into a field north of the city where a dozen wyvern wait in a circle around Tiny, who's just thrashing around. Tiny is held in chains that are being secured down by wyvern perching on top of them, and I will never forgive Theophony for this. The chains are each cutting into Tiny's scales so much that the chains are covered in blood, and several of his scales litter the ground. Unforgivable. But Meera is not much better. Theophony is in front of this circle of wyverns surrounding Tiny, holding a blade against Meera's throat and another against her ribs. The right side of Meera's face is purple and swollen, and her throat carries a necklace of bruises. And her left hand is dripping blood, but her leathers hide where the origin is from up her arm. Theophony, I take back every nice thing I ever said about you, you Venin bestie. You're a bitch.
We've known most of this book how Theophony wants Violet as her Dark Wielder student. She's been playing the patient long game to convince Violet to turn Venin. And like we've mentioned already this episode, this is her final and ultimate trap she's setting for Violet. Either turn Venin or let your loved ones and innocent people die. Theophony is so sure of this outcome as she taunts Violet and honestly finds this entertaining. Will Violet pull from the source and gain immeasurable power to save her sister? Or to defend Zaden? Or to get revenge? Quote, I'm betting a combination of all three.
This also brings back what Brennan said earlier, this stretch of chapters. These dark wielders know way more about Violet than Violet knows about them. How does she know that this is Violet's kryptonite? Do they have a Venin version of Varish's signet where they can see someone's weaknesses? Or do they have a Venin signet like Takaris's where they can see what someone wants in life? Did Jack just spill the beans? Does he know enough about Violet? Do they have intrinsics? This I definitely think they do. I think I would not be shocked if they have Venin intrinsics beyond just Zaden. Or they might have also tapped into the Venin hive mind and learned this information by tapping into Zaden's knowledge of Violet.
Or it's from Lilith, because Theophony is familiar with Lilith.
But is she familiar with Lilith post Violet becoming an adult?
I don't know about that necessarily, but I think that Theophony, she has taunted Violet already that she knows so much more about her than Violet does know. She also has said that she was at Bisgayeth, and she just missed out on Andarna, the Irid hatching. So we don't know what exactly that timeline looks like, but maybe she was at Bisgayeth when Violet was training to become a scribe.
Ooh.
I don't know that, and she was like undercover there somehow.
Maybe, yeah. Oh, that's brilliant.
But this does bring us back to the question about why Theophony wants to take Violet, of all people, under her wing and make her turn Venin. For one, having a lightning wielder will, quote, tip the balance for the Venin's takeover. But building off this and jumping a little bit ahead in the scene, magic likes all things in balance. And once a century or so, the Venin, or maybe either side, gets the chance to skew the scales in their favor. While we'll talk about this concept of magic liking all things in balance soon, let's focus on Theophony saying, quote, I will prove myself to him this time. Because we need to talk about this. Theophony confirms she is not talking about Berwyn, and only a few are older and faster than her. I will bet my signed copy of the Onyx Storm Deluxe Edition that this him Theophony refers to is General Daramore, the leader of the Baron's army from the Great War 600 years ago, who we are convinced was/is a Venin.
The fact that we got no General Daramore mentions directly in this book when he is mentioned, okay, fine, it's like twice, but twice in Iron Flame, that is shocking to me.
But I think that's also another hint that it is him.
Yes.
He is mentioned here. This he seems to be the big boss Theophony is trying to prove herself to by getting Violet to turn. Quote, a weapon like you will only submit to someone stronger. So come, let's get this farce over with so you can begin your real journey. He's waiting.
Okay, I have a prediction. I think that next book, the final battle, will introduce this he, which, yes, I do definitely think is General Daramore, and it will end up with our side losing and Violet either going to their side by sacrificing herself or by getting captured or something, but she will be under General Daramore's care is definitely not the right word to use there, but like
she'll be a prisoner of his?
She'll be a prisoner for lack of a better term of his next book.
I could definitely see that. So Theophony wants Violet to turn Venin because someone like her who can alter the balance of magic, whatever that means, only comes around once a century. And Theophony is seeking to bring Violet to this him, who again we're convinced is General Daramore. I assume so that Violet can become a powerful weapon for the Venin, where they can then tip the balance. Magic seems to have its own agenda with liking all things in balance, as we discussed last episode. So here the Venin are trying to warp it to their advantage by bringing Violet to their side. Or maybe because Violet doesn't have an exact counter, like Zaden now with his shadows and Lynx having the same once-in-a-generation signet, this is the Venin's opportunity to seize the one and only lightning wielder. That's my guess, with how enthralled all of the Venin who have come across Violet have been like, oh, you're the lightning wielder, I'm not supposed to kill you, but I need to take you to my boss.
Well, I wonder if General Daramore wants to, I'm going to say drain Violet. She is pure power after all, so maybe him draining her would be like the ultimate power boost that he needs or he believes he needs to win the war. So they would either have her on their side to wield and kill Dragon literally out of the sky, or they would have her on their side to drain, like, so they'd be extra powerful, or maybe they'd like drain her slowly, like bit by bit.
I wonder if a Venin actually cannot be a lightning wielder, at least, for instance, the way that they all kind of are with their Venin signets, and they can only get someone who already is a lightning wielder to then turn. And while I don't have a theory about this, there is also the hints that Andarna gave at the end of Iron Flame when she was saying, you know, like, I knew that the girl with the heart of a writer and the mind of a scribe with the silver hair would be mine. And I was guessing then that there might be some kind of prophecy associated with that. We know that there is now a prophecy of some sorts associated with Violet and being dedicated to Dune, but could this also have something to do with it, with the Venin having their own version of the prophecy and wanting to complete that with the lightning wielder coming onto their side? All in all, this is my understanding of why Theophony is on a mission to turn Violet. And here she is setting a trap to encourage Violet to turn, preying on what matters most to Violet, her loved ones and innocent people, so that she will feel that pull, that reach to really take the power that she needs in order to accomplish all three objectives.
But remember, Theophony said, I want Zaden, Violet, and Bodie. But she didn't really mean Bodie. It's okay. No one does, apparently. Luckily, Zaden already saw this coming.
With Bodie not being the brother she intended for them to bring, Theophony says, quote, Berwin will be so disappointed. To which Violet assures her that Jack is coming. And in this moment, Zaden...
Can you imagine being second to Jack in this moment? Poor Bodie.
Everybody's second
Venin
to Jack, according to my shirt right now. Oh, God, I just threw up a little bit in my mouth. In this moment, Zaden repeats the name Berwin, tensing and shifting his focus south. Violet thinks that he does this motion because he knows south is where he needs to be, in position to save as many people as possible. But I think this is the first time Zaden hears the name of his sage, and that name itself is like a call to Zaden, trying to pull him south where he will eventually be summoned.
Yes, because before this mention of Berwin, Zaden is using his shadows. He's having them curl around his boots, but the shadows keep drifting south. And then in a moment, when everything goes to complete shit, Zaden will shoot his shadows out towards Theophony, but all the bands will fly southward, which makes Violet go like, what the fuck? Zaden's not really off with his aim, especially not that off. I truly think he's starting to already be summoned south by Berwin, and it's like his shadows are starting to pull him there. Oh God, it's so good. And it's also terrifying because that means that Berwin kind of maybe can control Zaden's signet or like emphasize it, and that's not good.
I don't know if I would call it that necessarily, but I think it is like his shadows are like being called to Berwin because they are an extension of Zaden.
Well, and it goes back to what Zaden says at the beginning of his chapter where he's like, I can't kill Berwin. It's like he can't kill Berwin with his signet because it's almost like his shadows are, like you're saying, it's
exactly
been on his side.
Exactly, yes. And in fact, initially I was like, oh my gosh, does this mean that Zaden won't be able to use his signet whatsoever? But that obviously he can, right? Yeah. So... interesting. Very interesting. We've heard Theophony call Berwin by his name to Violet once before in chapter 11 when she and Garrick were in Newhall, though Zaden was not there. And I think Theophony recognizes Zaden's movement and call to Berwin right now because she follows up with, quote, yes, hence the term brother. AKA, she's like, yeah, he's both your and Jack's sage, which is what makes you brothers.
Which means whoever this new brother is at the end will also be under Berwin's team. So I'm going to give Berwin this. He's 3-0 on Theophony and remains that way because Theophony's dead.
This makes me so interested to learn more about how a sage claims an initiate as theirs. Zaden makes sense because he was in the presence of Berwin when he turned and Berwin was taunting him in that moment. But what about Jack, who was within the Rider's Quadrant when he turned within a few months of threshing? I'm not saying I think Berwin was in Basgiath during Violet's first year, but it does make you wonder how he connected with Jack to claim him as his Venin son. Like, maybe just in dreams, and in Jack's dreams is how Berwin communicated his secrets that make Theophony go, quote, I won't make the same mistakes with you Berwin made with Jack. He spills his sage's secrets too easily.
I fucking love this. Because also, what if Berwin went into Jack's dreams and taught him how to turn Venin? And that's one of the reasons that Rebecca Yarros hasn't told us how Jack turned yet, because we don't have it confirmed that that's what Berwin can do.
Well, she has told us that it's much easier for a person to turn if they were already a writer, because True. It's kind of like they already know how to do that, but otherwise they would probably have to be trained.
But I could see Berwin going into Jack's dreams or other people's dreams and showing like, hey, this is what you could have. Hey, this is like the type of power. And it's almost like, again, it goes back to that subconscious chess we were playing were talking a few episodes ago, like where it's turning the tide without even the dreamer realizing the tide is turning.
I agree with you. However, I do think that Jack did not need anybody to tell him anything about turning. And it was after he turned that Berwin would have come to him in the dream and been like, hey, yes, that's what I think.
Interesting. I think he could have been playing it from the very beginning. I'd agree with you that it didn't take much to convince Jack, though, that's for sure.
But back to the scene at hand before we keep spiraling down that rabbit hole.
Your wish is granted, Theophony, because out of the blue, Garrick and Crod appear holding the Ribestad chest, a Ryerson family heirloom that Fen gave to Takaris back when they sealed the deal of the betrothal for Zaden and Kat. This is a very special chest that suspends anyone in the armoire's clutches so that a Venin, for example, cannot touch a surface and thus drain it. And it emaciates them as a result, like it's done now with Jack. He's sedated, at least for now.
I believe Theophony wanting Jack is a twofold. Whether she wants him back in their possession or doesn't mind him dying with the Sage's secrets, it's not extremely clear. But let's assume she wants him with the Venin versus wanting him dead. Number one, Berwin wants him back in their possession. Jack is his initiate, his son, and Panchak has been under the impression he has some leverage over Berwin to return Jack to him. But more importantly for Theophony's own objective, number two, Jack talks. She does not want Jack in Navarre's clutches because he'll tell them about the Venin, and the less the other side know about the Venin, the better. So she's like, stupid Berwin, here I am having to clean up his mess, blabbing too much to his initiate, who way too easily shares what he's told to the people holding him prisoner. Like Zaden will shout to Garrick, get Jack and the chest out of here because he obviously knows things the Venin don't want us knowing. Interesting, because Jack has remained quiet when he was questioned by Markham and Nolan. It's only when Zaden or Violet questions him that he shares bits of information, before Imogen wipes his memory so he doesn't remember telling. I wonder if he tells Zaden because of their kinship, and Violet because he's a bully and feels like it gives him an upper hand.
I just relish in the idea that Jack thinks he's like, I'll give them this one nugget of information. And then he gets his memory wiped. So meanwhile, he's given like 15 nuggets of information, but he thinks he's so funny. Oh, God, what an ass. Jumping ahead a little bit, but in a moment when Theophony slits Meera's throat and everything happens all at once, Theophony will hurl the dagger she attempted to kill Meera with at Jack, and it will lodge in the chest door.
So this is interesting because it's like, was she throwing the dagger in Jack's general direction so that he could then have a knife against the others? That's my assumption, though I can see how some people wonder if it was her attempting to kill him when she threw the dagger at him. Though this is not an alloy-hilted dagger, and that's the only way a blade would cut Jack the Aesum now.
Are we positive it's not an alloy-hilted dagger? Because I was under the assumption she was throwing the dagger at Jack for him to drain really quick so that he could be all unhinged and escape.
I suppose we don't know for sure, but it's always said whether it is an alloy-hilted dagger or not, and the way that it was described with it being held up to Meera's chest, I don't believe that it was stated if it was alloy-hilted.
I'm with you on... I think she was trying to give Jack a weapon to escape versus killing him because he was blabbing too much, which is just amazing. But anyway, none of that happens because Garrick and Crod take to the skies with the chests and go poof out of existence. Where did they go? No one knows, but let's have some guesses. Number one, and I'm pretty willing to die on this hill, is that they went to Erasia. And we'll see him and Violet talk next book because he might have some insight as to where Zaden is or as to where the Venin hive is. Number two guess, though, is that he was poofed back to Bezgaeth. But given Zaden's status with the rest of Navarre, I don't see them willingly giving back a huge asset like Jack, who knows a lot of things so much so that Theophony was like, get him out of there because we can't have him blab like an idiot.
So this does make me wonder how Garrick grabbed Jack from Bezgaeth in the first place. I'm assuming he had to get the chest, which I think was in Erasia. Then he distance walked back to Jack's cell in Bezgaeth, gets him into the chest, and then comes here.
No wonder he's so tired and he can't walk Tiny up the hill. The number three guess that I have is that Garrick threw them off the cliffs of Draelor and he finally died and Lexi can sleep easy at night.
Or, because Garrick is missing in the end, Jack could be wherever Garrick is in the end. Though, because this happens so much earlier than the chaos of the battle, my best guess is Erasia, so he can be interrogated for whatever he knows about the Venin that is a threat to Theophony.
Oh my God, but enough about our guesses around Jack Barlo. There's one thing we know for sure, and we are so excited, and that is spring is springin'. It's coming around the corner, and you know what that means. Spring cleaning. Just like people declutter their homes in March, it's also a great time to refresh your nutrition and daily habits. benefits. Feeling refreshed and ready starts in your gut, and the pre/probiotics in AG1 helps to support digestion.
My husband Jake and I have noticed such a big difference since we started using AG1. I have tummy issues, and it really helps and makes me just feel better in my gut. Like, I don't know how else to say that except it just feels so much better. I also feel like I have more energy and focus just throughout the day, and it's my favorite way to start every morning. And it's like become our little ritual where Jake makes them for us and he hands one over to me, and then we go crazy with all the kids and getting them out the door, and then it's like, and then by the end of it, I have drank my AG1.
When it comes to health, we want something we can trust, and that's why we choose AG1. With the science-backed ingredients and real benefits we can feel, AG1 makes it easy to support overall wellness every day. And that's why we've been partnering with AG1 for so long. So long. We love it. And AG1 is offering new subscribers a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, and 5 free travel packs in your first box. By the way, those travel packs, Lexi and I never leave the state without them. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com/FFG to get this offer. That's drinkag1.com/FFG to start the new season on a healthier note. Let's go back in time for a moment and go back to the moment where they give Theophony Jack and uphold their end of the deal.
It's time to let Meera and Tiny go, goddammit! Garrick's first relay of the message was if Violet and Bodie don't show up at Drathus within 5 hours, Meera dies. But later, during the battle strategy meeting, he clarified, quote, I don't know. She said to bring Violet and your brother and they'll let Drathus stand. So no mention of Meera living. I love you. But you had one job of delivering this message and you weren't very clear. And you literally said, I don't know, when they asked you what the message was. That is the most guy thing I have ever heard in my entire life. Although I cannot blame you, Garrick, because this is exactly what Theophony expected and wanted to have play out. You fell into her trap, Garrick! With this clarification of the deal that nothing was said about Meera living, Theophony gives Violet her 2 lessons in being a Venin. Number 1, they're careful with their words, just like the Fae. And number 2, they lie. Quote, she draws the blade across Meera's neck and slits her throat. No! Meera! I gasped when this happened! Because for a moment, we're not going to keep reading. Just like we didn't when we read this for the first time and just stared at the page, absolutely horrified. Nicole and I were not quiet in the lead up to Onyx Storm that we thought Meera was the most likely big character death in book 3, assuming we stuck with the pattern that one of Violet's protectors died each book. Hence our flippin' t-shirts right now. So when we read this, we were shocked but not surprised, if that makes sense. No less devastated, though. I thought for sure we were losing Meera. I even gave her a eulogy from one big sister to another as we sat there, sitting in absolute horror in our hotel room.
And yes, I have that eulogy on video. And yes, we will post it on social media later this week because it's incredible knowing what happens a few pages later.
Even though what happens next will make sense for all characters involved and glean some insight into Brennan's mending power combined with siphoning, like Nicole did to revive him, in this moment, Meera's death and it being so out of Violet's control despite her best efforts felt so heartbreakingly beautiful and really good storytelling. It also makes me wonder if that means that she is safe, at least for the next book, though I have the right to change my mind over the next 2 years, speculating who the big character death is in book 4, because Rebecca has assured us a character we love will die. This could also just be a false sense of security with Meera too, so I don't know.
Then, quote, everything seems to happen at once, like a group of musicians cued for a performance. God, I love this writing. Violet sprints to Meera, Brennan quickly on her heels. Meera collapses to the grass. A horde of wyvern rises in the south. Theophony flings the dagger at the chest, and Garrick and Crod disappear with Jack in tow. And a wyvern plucks Theophony from the ground and flies her away. Why would Theophony leave now, you ask? Her plan was just in motion. She just has Violet on the ground mortified. It's a pretty good time to snatch Violet up. She knows that Violet is in a huge, immense amount of pain right now and suffering from, air quotes, the loss of her sister. She also knows she's about to go conduct the battle on Drathus, so Violet feels super torn on who to help, and others are spread so thin. So Theophony is literally like, I'm gonna go away for a second, I'm gonna ready to break Violet in just a few minutes. But whether Theophony knew or not, Brennan is also with Violet, and he attempts to use his signet on their sister as fast as humanly possible, which leads to the line, quote, Brennan's powerful, but I can't think of a single rider who's been saved on a battlefield with an injury this this extensive. Except for probably Brennan. We don't know the full story still of how Brennan was almost killed on the battlefield. But dang, moments like this make you think that this line is in place to set us up for that reveal. I hope next book. I thought it would be this one, but alas, no. Brennan is no Naolan, and despite how hard he's trying to mend Meera, there's too much damage, and Brennan nears the limit of his power.
As Meera bleeds out from her throat being slit, Violet pleads with Malak not to take her sister. She even yells, quote, at whatever deity will listen. We've talked before about how often when someone close to Violet is about to die, she yells at Malak not to take them. And some readers speculate that she does have this connection with Malak because he sometimes listens to her and doesn't take the person. But it's not until we get this line that truly has me wondering if there is something more to this theory. Quote, you can't have her, I whisper up to Malak, and I swear the clouds darken slightly in acknowledgement, or maybe mocking. Is this a nod to the deity really listening to her? Like, could it actually be Dune listening instead of Malak? Or is this more symbolism of the help that is on the way as the sentence continues about who's approaching?
I don't know, but I also highlighted that in my notes and was like, oh my God, there might be something else here. I feel like because she's whispering up to Malak in this moment, it would be a connection to Malak over Dune.
Yeah.
But then that opens up the question of what is her connection to Malak as opposed to her connection to Dune that we already know. But add that to the list of things we did not get in book 3 because what's that? It's a bird! It's a plane!
It's 2 red dragons! Readying to arrive at the scene. It's Kath, Dane's dragon, and Thort, Sloane's dragon. With these 2 writers here. But what are you doing here? Sloan is a first year, and she's supposed to be behind the wards helping the evacuees at the top of the cliffs. But Sloan was on a mission to come here in order to pass along mail from Arik that needs to get to Violet. And because Sloan is under Dane's command, he followed her after his dragon alerted him to her departure against orders. But as Violet and Taryn noticed earlier in the scene, Arik and his dragon, Mulvik, ventured south, also against orders, away from the conflict. We'll talk all about why next episode. But here, Dane and Sloan are also coming from the south. Orisha is northwest. So did they go after Arik to the south and then he gave Sloan this package and insisted it must get to Violet right now while he was off on his own objective? In any case, both first years are defying orders to stay within the Orishan wards as Sloan comes here, again, from the south to give the package to Violet. I also wonder if Arik, with his precog, knew Sloan was the one who needed to deliver the package so she can also help Meera. She's in the right place at the right time, after all.
I wonder if they flew from Tyrrendor and went over the ocean and into Drathus, because that would mean they're not flying over possible airspace that might be invaded by wyverns, so it's a more safe route, or if Sloan was trying to go out of the way so she wouldn't be caught, and then that's where Dane caught up to her.
That's probably more what it would be, yes, because the area that they're coming from in Orisha, it's not covered by Venin. Mm-hmm. That's like the one area that they wouldn't be covered by Venin. Yeah. So I do think that it could be that where they don't want to fly over the pass and alert everybody else about where they are. So yeah,
I think that's it. But right place, right time aside, Sloan is still terrified to use her powers after what happened to Lilith last book. But Dane seizes the opportunity to help coach Sloan through this tumultuous time. And I am going beat by fucking beat through this moment, and you can't stop me. Knowing this is dangerous for her to use her own power to siphon back into Brennan when she hasn't practiced yet, Dane encourages her to take his and funnel it into Brennan. So, as if he's talking to a skittish horse, Dane guides her to grab onto his wrist, kinky, with one hand and put the other on Brennan's neck. Sloan hesitates, but grabs his wrist nonetheless, looking down at the gray drained mark that Jack left on Dane at the end of last book. And that's when Dane says the words that truly rocked the internet. Quote, eyes here. She moves her eyes from the mark and up to his gaze as he goes on, quote, pull from the access you feel in me and push to the deficit in him. You are not a weapon of destruction. You're not Venin. You're the artery power chooses to flow through. Your life. Okay, Dane eyes here, Atos, but he doesn't stop there, because when Sloan sees Dane flinch, she states that she's going to hurt him. And Dane comes back with a quote, gods, don't I know it. And he is not talking about the pain from what he's Are you serious right now? Are you? No. Oh my God, Lexi, let me introduce you to romance real quick. Because he is not talking about the pain from what she's doing with her signet. Dane is falling for her, and he knows it's going to end with her breaking his heart.
I definitely thought he was talking about the physical pain.
Oh my God. You literal sweet summer child.
What?
No, because he's saying, like, gods don't, I know it. She's like, I'm hurting you. And he's like, I know you are.
But she is physically hurting him as she takes his power.
Swear to God, are you kidding me? No way is he not talking about the romance that he's falling for her and he knows she's going to hurt him because he doesn't think she likes him back.
Maybe it's both. It's at least both.
We're taking this to the Discord because there is no way.
No, we're taking this to Rebecca here.
Fine, I'll add it to my list of questions. Anyway, Lexi not having a romantic bone in her body, apparently, aside, this is everything. Reading this part was so satisfying. Did I have Sloan and Dane on my ship card before going into Onyx Storm? Absolutely not. But
I did. We did think that. We thought maybe.
Gold star, Lexi. I think we talked about it for a second, but it was more Dane and Kat and it was Sloan and Auric we had on our list more so.
That is true, yes.
But regardless, I am so here for this. It makes so much sense now when you go back into Iron Flame and you find these little Easter eggs that set us up, and they just completely went over our heads during the deep dive. Like, for instance, during Sloan's sparring, and Violet intervened with the artist powder, but before Sloan starts to fight, Violet notices how Dane is watching Sloan from one mat over. Also, when Sloan is first introduced on the parapet, quote, Dane looks like he's seen a specter. Oh, God, it's so much fun. Dane has learned his lesson in these past two books. Who to trust. How coddling Violet from book 1 pushed her away from him. How he was the villain in Liam's death. But in part 2 of Iron Flame and in this book, we really see Dane grapple with those choices he made and him trying to set them straight again. And Sloan is someone who he is not babying, and instead he's pushing her to train. Also, Sloan has greatly improved in her hand-to-hand and just overall athleticism in this book. Do you think that Dane's been training her a la Zaden and Violet back in book 1, or do you think it's still Imogen who's training her? I'm thinking Imogen.
I definitely think Imogen, because Sloan is still hating Dane. She's very reluctantly warming up to him, but she won't even admit it to herself right now. It's the classic enemies to lovers. She's still in the enemies territory and fighting her emotions, where she's not wanting to fall for him, and she doesn't want to believe it, but she is anyway. But she doesn't know it yet herself.
It's so much fun, the parallels from another couple we know and love from Fourth Wing. Wing leader of Fourth Wing and a first year are falling for each other. First year's hating the wing leader because the wing leader had a hand in their older brother's death. First year doesn't want to go and use their signet because they feel like it's nothing but a death trap. So the wing leader teaches them to use their signet for good. God, I love this! Of course, though, we have to do some fun speculation. I think we're in agreement that they have not acted on their feelings yet together.
No.
Especially with how this scene ends with Dane trying to help Sloan up, and she basically bats him away, says fuck off, and then flips him off. That, like you said, it's just classic enemies to lovers. I do think that off page next book, there will be a moment where maybe they have their first kiss or something like that, but then we'll have another moment where Dane is like running into battle and he'll turn around and kiss Sloan, which I will just squeal with joy and kick my legs up in the air. I'm so excited. If you had told me during our Fourth Wing deep dives that I would be swooning over Dane fucking Atos wearing a Daddy Atos shirt, even though, yes, I know it's for his dad, but I still don't care. It applies still. I would have thought you were crazy. God, I hope they both survive this series, but I have a feeling Dane might not.
With that sobering thought, using her signet to help save a life versus take a life is such an impactful moment for Sloan's arc. Siphoning power out of Lilith Sorrengail to imbue the Bisgayeth Wardstone really scarred Sloan, making her feel like a weapon of destruction that's only used as killing people. That's pretty much the only thing she had used it on, after all, which makes this opposite usage of her signet all the more beautiful and powerful for her character arc. Sloan is the vessel of power. That's what her siphoning signet is in a nutshell. She can take Dane's power and push it into into Brennan, therefore imbuing Brennan to give him the strength and magic he needs to mend Meera and save her life. It's the same magic she used to take the power out of Lilith and into the Wardstone, but it's using it in a completely different way. Instead of being an instrument of death, Sloane's signet becomes a conduit for life, which means that the purpose of her signet is determined by how she chooses to wield it. And I get how scared she is of its similarities with the Venin, but in her case, her power is channeling power. She is using her own power to channel other power, versus Venin, who don't have that signet of channeling power already built in. So they're taking and using power that is not theirs to take. This is such a fantastic demonstration of the siphoning signet, similar to how Naolan saved Brennan's life when he siphoned power into Brennan to save him. I believe that this example of how siphoning magic can work to save a life is the main reason Meera stays alive, because I totally understand some readers wish for her to stay dead. It would feel more realistic and heart-wrenching in the best kind of way, but I really do think there is a greater reason for her to stay alive, and it's largely to demonstrate how it is possible to bring someone back from certain death. Plus, to me, this means that Meera still has a bigger role to play in what's next for our story. She's still alive for a reason, and I'm excited to see how book 4 will be with her, Violet, and Brennan. She had been mad at Violet for trusting Zaden as a Venin when she left to go back to the front lines, and then she got captured. So now with everyone assuming the deaths and missing eggs are Zaden's fault, I'm curious how she is going to balance wanting to take care of her sister and maybe even feeling validated about Zaden, perhaps even guilty she didn't tell anyone about him before he allegedly did this. Not to mention for why she's saved in the scene, the symbolism of Sloan, who has hated the Sorrengail family and how they represent the death of her own family, saving Meera's life after she aided in taking Lilith's. It's so good, so good.
It's moments like this that I get so excited for Sloane's character arc in the next 2 books, because I'm pretty sure Sloane's not going to die. I think she's safe. I say that with a huge grain of salt and a lot of knocking on wood. But I mean, another Mari dying, like, come on. I can only take so much. But that's
why she's... Yep, that's why I don't trust Rebecca for anybody.
Except Broccoli. Haha, you didn't think we were going to talk about this part and not discuss this line from Sloan to Dane. Quote, "Someone like you shouldn't have this much power." We knew from Fourth Wing that Kath channels a pretty significant amount of power into Dane. And at the time, we just chucked that line into Dane just flexing. But it turns out he's not just doing the bro exaggeration to like make himself feel more important. Meh. Instead, it is actually Dane has a lot of power. But why? Let's go through some theories. Number 1, it's a hint for us that he's going to be one of the 6 most powerful riders this generation. This is the one I'm leaning most towards. Like, he does have a pretty decent signet. Number 2, we talked about this a few episodes back, but there's the theory about him being a child of a Venin and a non-Venin. So is this why he has so much power? Half of him is Venin with unlimited magical source? I don't know if I can get behind that theory quite yet.
Well, technically, the Venin don't have unlimited magic sources.
They don't.
They have access to unlimited magic, but
yes.
Yeah.
And then number 3, I actually found this on a Reddit article, and this is a comment by Yoga Millennial, and they mentioned how it could be a foreshadowing for their romance. Lexi, I know you have not a romantic bone in your body when it comes to Dane and Sloan, so let me spell this out for you.
That's not true! I just thought it was physical pain!
Ah, yes, the other way of looking at romance. Great. So there's a line, "Someone like you." This is inadvertently getting Liam killed. He was pro-leadership. She hates him for all the reasons that he killed her family, yada, yada, yada. "Shouldn't have this much power over my feelings," or like over myself. I think that one's a little bit of a stretch. That's why I'm still leaning most towards number 1, where it's just a hint for us that Dane's going to be one of these 6 most powerful.
I also wonder if there's a stigma that people with mind signets are not as powerful as the other more flashy signets. And Sloan is realizing it in real time that he does have a lot of power still, even if it's not in a signet like we've come to identify with powerful people like Violet or Zaden or even Lilith.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
All of this to say, Meera lives! Huzzah! 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 My favorite big sister does not die. Whew. That was a really close call and one my heart is still recovering from. Mending her was messy and she has a nasty scar across her throat. But the fact is, she is alive and will be okay. As Brennan starts heading toward his dragon as he takes Meera to safety, Violet notices something that we gotta talk about. Weird. There's no mark at the back of Brennan's neck like he carries on his palm. There hadn't been one on Dane's wrist either. Let's start this with Violet assumed was the case. Brennan has a scarred rune on his palm, and Violet has believed that it was a consequence of Nicole ciphering his power into Brennan and saving his life years ago. Sloan siphoned power from touching Dane's wrist and into Brennan, where she was touching his neck. So based on what Violet thought, there should be a rune scar left behind where the person was touched during siphoning. But here, Violet is proven wrong. That siphoning one's power into another like what Dane and Brennan just did does not leave a rune scar, leaving all of us to wonder what the cause of Brennan's rune scar is. I still believe it is definitely connected to his own resurrection. Let's go through some of the variations of this theory. Plus, there's a question actually of whether this is an active rune or a rune that has already been used. This could be a rune within Brennan that keeps him alive. There's a theory that I'm leaning toward, and Nicole had to embed it into Brennan as he was bringing him back. According to battle reports, Brennan, quote, died from getting shot with an arrow by Finn Ryerson. But maybe that's not the case, and maybe there was even some kind of deadly magic that took Brennan down. I don't know how or why, but maybe that took him down, and this rune has to be within Brennan to continually combat that magic. Then there's the popular theory that Brennan is kind of like the wyvern, who are animated because of the complex rune stones placed inside of them. Could this be a Venin rune within Brennan, where he's being controlled by the Venin, or has a bond-like connection to them, specifically with Nicole? Because a lot of readers, including us, think that Nicole may have turned Venin from saving Brennan's life. Just the mention of Violet noticing this and us learning this is much more than when power was siphoned into him are big alarm bells that something is here and it's important. This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. We all know that an effective website is essential to the success of small business, and starting that process can be really overwhelming. But luckily, Squarespace has had our backs for all of our website needs.
Squarespace simplifies the entire website creation process. Start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. Choose from professionally curated layouts and styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up, tailored to your brand or business and optimized for every device. Easily launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated optimized SEO tools so you can show up more often to more people and grow the way you want.
Plus, for our friends who sell products through their website, Squarespace makes checkout seamless for your customers with simple but powerful payment tools. Accept credit cards, PayPal and Apple Pay, and in eligible countries, offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay.
Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/FFG to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. With Meera on the mend, it's time to get most of these people the hell out of here. Bodie notices how in the distance the Battle of Drathus has begun, with dragons and griffins hovering over the city walls and crossbolts firing at the approaching wyvern. But they're almost out of crossbolts and they'll need reinforcements soon. So it's time to split up. Sloan, get back behind the Tyrish wards. Get out of here. Dane is heading into the fight with one request. Later, y'all are going to tell him what the fuck happened to Garrick and Crod and how they disappeared. I cannot wait for Dane's second signet keeper next book. I'm so weirdly excited for this. I have apparently fallen hard for Dane. What the hell happened? Brennan carries Meera's unconscious body onto Marb, and they head off back to Erasia, assumably, and Zaden needs to go help fight in the city. Him and Violet share one quick kiss, which ends with Violet saying, "Come back to me." Oh, this breaks my heart because this is the last time they see each other before he turns ASOM and then they get married. I am not ready for that emotional roller coaster next episode because too fast, Zaden is running up Segale and they launch south towards the city and unknowingly towards where Berwyn is calling him. Well, with the Duke of Angst gone, we still have another problem. Tiny is unconscious, injured, and cannot stay in this field because or else he'd be helpless against the Venin and could be drained instantly, thus killing Meera as a result, which they just went to great lengths to avoid. But Garrick is too exhausted from distance walking Jack's ass all over the goddamn continent, so Tarn is the only one strong enough to carry Tiny up the Madaro Pass to get Tiny out of range to heal. Reluctantly, Tarn agrees, gripping the chains around Tiny, and he flies away. It's like a basket, but a dragon, you know? Remember, Erasia is 2 hours away for Tarn when he's flooring it, when he's going 63 miles per hour. And now he's carrying Tiny, a dragon. While Tarn is not taking Tiny all the way to Erasia, he's just taking him up the pass to get him to safety. It's still not going to be a short flight. I gotta agree with Bodie here. Quote, bold strategy. Sending our biggest dragon away is definitely not gonna bite us in the ass.
Just like Violet anticipated, Theophony returns to this field north of Drathus. She's here to ensure Violet turns after all, and she makes her grand re-entrance by confirming magic, like all things in balance, is the oldest rule there is. Quote, but once a century or so, we get the chance to skew the scales in our favor. As I talked about earlier, why she's so set on Violet, the lightning wielder. There's some debate about whether Theophony is so fast that she's like Dash from The Incredibles, where she can seemingly appear out of nowhere because you didn't see her coming. Or whether she's like a distance wielder, like we theorize the higher up Venin have this ability because more than a few have demonstrated this power. I'm leaning toward this being like the ability to disapparate, where it's not even a signet, but an ability of the more powerful Venin.
This theory of it being only higher up Venin is just further cemented in my brain by Theophony saying, quote, there are only a few more of us who are faster, older too. Now, there are a few of us who are faster, older too is also possibly a nod to General Daramore being one of those who is faster and older, especially with that hymn she's referring to from earlier. But because this is phrased as there are multiple people who are older than her and more advanced from what it sounds like, it makes me think that we're going to have several Venin from the Great War 600 years ago. And I'm back on my BS about there being at least one member of the first 6 who went Venin. Maybe it's not Lyra. Maybe it's Warwick. I don't know. He kind of gives me going Venin vibes. Maybe it was whoever the shadow wielder was, maybe that was Warwick. I don't know. But I definitely think we're going to see not only General Daramore, but one of the first 6 as well. We need to talk about what Theophony says about Bodie. She taunts Violet for her, quote, odd choice of companion, seeing that Violet smells of Zaden. I also love that she's just sniffing her. It's as if she's putting Bodie and Violet together just before she says, quote, this is to Bodie, quote, tell me, do you not grow tired of being a less powerful version of your cousin? Again, that foreshadowing for Bodie being subconsciously or consciously, I'm leaning towards he thinks it's subconsciously, being the backup Zaden, basically. Theophony goes on, though, because she's nowhere near done. Quote, you're almost done waiting. He'll be gone soon, and the crown will be yours. Again, another mention of Erasha having a crown when they really don't have a physical crown. I feel like this is either just setting up for them eventually having a crown, maybe when they secede against Navarre, or showing us how old Theophony's information on Erasha is. Regardless, Bodhi tells her that they do not have a crown in Erasha, and she doesn't know him well enough to fuck with his head. Quote, I'm doing exactly what I've always wanted, protecting my cousin, my province. Yep, checks out, until Theophony says, quote, and her, meaning Violet. I am standing on my hill, ready to die on it, that this is proof that Bodhi has a thing for Violet. I crowdsourced this, by the way, while you were gone this weekend. I was at a concert. I was with some friends. I asked them what they thought, and they all very enthusiastically agree with me. So take it.
Okay. Violet thinks that as long as Bodhi's signet of countering signets works against Theophony, they can defeat her before Taryn gets back. So Bodhi raises his hand, turns it like a doorknob, and yay! There's no lightning strikes, which means it's working, right? Right? Wrong! Because despite him wielding his signet of countering other signets, the sky is darkening and the wind is blowing while the temperature and humidity rise. Sorry, I don't know where that dance came from. And this is the moment that the truth dawns on Violet. Theophony is not, in fact, a lightning wielder like she thought. She's a storm wielder, dun dun dun, just like Violet's mother! Except Theophony is an extra super duper powerful storm wielder! Oh no! We'll talk about all of that in a moment. But for now, let's focus on what this means for Bodhi. Poor Bodhi. Because his signet doesn't work against Venin. What? Or at least Theophony. We have not seen him try to counter other Venin signets. So for now, we're going to roll with this assumption that it is against all Venin. He's in denial that his signet is not working. It's supposed to always be the balance after all. He insists that he can stop her, but Violet pushes back that he can't! Most signets are either offensive or defensive with the Dark Wielders, but Bodhi is unique in that his signet directly targets and impacts other signets, which means his signet also uniquely is useless against the Venin, at least Theophony. Violet speculates that his magic must only work on theirs, meaning the humans' magic, not on the Venin's. And according to Violet, Bodie promised Zaden that he would keep himself protected for Tyrandor. I personally don't know if I ever heard Bodie say those exact lines himself, because he definitely doesn't think that way, but you know what? We'll go with what Violet thinks when she's like, you promised! Bodie is determined to fight beside Violet. He won't let her go up against Theophony by herself, because I think that he really does want to be useful, until his dragon cure literally grabs him with his talons and takes off with a, quote, loudly protesting Bodie to head south. Note that south is where the worst of the fighting is. So Kira is not taking him to protection. He's taking him to where the fighting is and where they're more needed. South is also where the brother is. Violet knows that she needs to face off Theophony on her own. She is a lightning wielder. She knows that if anybody is going to have a chance against Theophony, who is a maven, very powerful storm wielder, it will be Violet, who is their best chance, right? Even if she is just a cadet. So Violet is like, no, Bodie, you need to go do your objective, which is to stay safe, and I need to do my objective, which is to kill Theophony. But let's discuss what Bodie's signet shortcomings, I'm unfortunately calling it, mean for his character. Bodie always feels secondary to Zaden. And while he embraces his role as Zaden's second, as rider between the two of them, perhaps maybe as his mother was with Finn, just Zaden is also a rider. He still lives in Zaden's shadow. Rebecca said during her Denver interview with us about Bodie, quote, I think he's always on the outside, like he's always Zaden's shadow. So he's always raised to be in Zaden's shadow. He's the spare. It's always about Zaden, but he is the spare. So in this context, Zaden has this powerful signet that can indeed go up against the Venin. But then there's Bodie, whose signet doesn't work against them, when it would be very, very helpful if it did. With Bodie realizing he's unable to use his signet against the likes of Theophony, I can't help but feel like this is more foreshadowing for him, again, to be the brother who turns. Maybe he turns Venin in hopes of his signet combating them. So, like Zaden, he turns for the right reasons. It also seems like this is the first time Bodie has gone up against a Venin wielding their signet. So Violet, and therefore the reader, are led to assume his signet countering signet only works against human magic, not Venin magic, like I was just saying. There is the theory that his signet doesn't work against Theophony in particular, not unlike our conversation last episode about how Indarna's fire doesn't work against Theophony. Does his signet not work because she is a maven, and therefore her signet is just that much more powerful than his? Or is she somehow, some way protected from this magic because she used to be a high priestess of Dune?
Pivoting to the revelation that Theophony is a storm wielder, because yeah, fuck, Theophony's not a lightning wielder. She wields storms. Lightning just happens because her storms that she creates. Again, looking back throughout this deep dive, it feels so obvious. And I just want to say, I went back through some of our videos the night that we were reading Onyx Storm, and chapter 10, our reactions to chapter 10, we talk about Theophony, and I mention what if she's a storm wielder? And then apparently I was way too tired to remember that for the rest of the read. It's fine. The Venin bestie goes on because Violet assumes Theophony is the answer to Lilith. But no, Violet Sorengale, Lilith was the non-Venin balance to Theophony. I have a million questions. We learn that Theophony fought Lilith when Lilith was Violet's age, so in her early 20s. And according to Theophony, their fight was why Lilith hid behind the Navarian wards. I would argue, Theophony, that there were many, many reasons, but seeing how much Lilith was not even close a match to Theophony's power would naturally freak Lilith out and cause her to go back beyond the wards, keep her children safe, all that kind of stuff. But pause, because it's now my questions time. First, what type of mission was Lilith on that would lead her to fight Theophony? Did Theophony sneak in, and did she fight her in the Navarian wards, or did she fight her outside? I'm guessing it was outside. What did Theophony say to Lilith? What I would give to know that conversation and how it went down? With Bodie out of the picture and the succession of Tyrandor safe, haha, it's battle time. A huge gust of wind forces Violet to her knees on the grass as something huge groans behind her. A tree with a trunk taller than Taryn is uprooted and topples over, causing Violet to fling herself out of the way. With Taryn out of range and the wind too strong for her to throw a dagger correctly, Theophony Theophony's plan of getting Violet to turn is pretty damn tempting. But aha! Violet has a trick up her sleeve. Slicing off a strip of her uniform, Violet grabs a Mayersight-tipped arrow from her padded quiver. Remember, Mayersight is an explosive that we assume was the Mari family specialty. Violet ties the arrow to a rock so it has more weight to it and therefore won't be carried off in the wind as much. And Violet throws the Mayersight arrow and rock towards Theophony, it landing just a couple of feet to her right. And it explodes, flinging Theophony back, and the wind dies without her control. Violet charges towards her foe, taking her last alloy-hilted dagger and trying to swing at Theophony, but she's too fast, grabbing Violet's forearm with enough force to crush her bone. Violet seizes the opportunity to use her other hand and blow out one of her black-hilted daggers and stab it in Theophony's thigh. This maneuver really just pisses Theophony off, driving the two of them backwards so hard that Violet is shocked the impact on her back didn't cause the quiver of arrows to just explode. Thank goodness for the cushion. Theophony takes this chance to look towards the battle in the distance and the wyvern heading up the Madaro Pass, knowing that the glance will also torture Violet, knowing she cannot help.
Just like Brennan anticipated, Theophony is relying on Violet to try and save everybody during this attack on Drathus. She even taunts how it will be entertaining to watch Violet try to be everywhere at once. But little does she know, Violet has had 3 books of character development and a stern talking to from her brother just pages ago, who reminded her that this is exactly the trap Theophony is setting for her, and if Violet falls into it, they will fail. Violet is someone who feels like she needs to do things on her own, whether that's because she is trying to protect others from being in harm's way, or because of her unique power as a lightning wielder, or even because she is just that stubborn. Yet, she is continuously reminded that she does not have to fight this fight alone, because she has such a strong and capable support system around her. Remember last episode when Rhi was helping her down on the ground by the temple and needing to get the wing spur out of Tarn, and Violet's like, no, you need to leave, and Rhi is just like, I'm here to help you, let me help. Violet is one rider out of many, and her squad leader and best friend is in a leadership position for a reason. Like Violet said to Brennan when he asked if she can count on Rhi to stick to orders this time, Violet answered confidently, quote, with my life. She trusts her friends with her life. And now it's time for her to trust her friends with other people's lives. Like all of the people fleeing Drathus and hiking up the pass. So with all of this top of mind, I love how Violet responds to Theophony's taunts. Quote, you're right, I can't be everywhere. I don't have to be. Violet doesn't believe she's the best in her group. She's got one objective for what is best suited for her, which is going after Theophony. But, quote, she is the best, meaning Rhi, who is their squad leader, who is the best at analyzing the full picture and giving orders. Rhi has the military strategy and the civilian empathy. Violet may be a great leader in her own right, though she can definitely go off the rails and get tunnel vision to reach her goal, whereas Rhi is way more level-headed and a tactician. This ending sentence about her friend being the best of them for directly helping save everyone else is the perfect tee-up for the next chapter, where we get our very first POV chapter from a character besides Violet and Zaden. When it was announced for the audiobook that we would have 2 additional narrators, we got so excited. We were both thinking it might be Anadarna's POV, especially after she left with Leothan. But to turn the page here and see it's Rhi's POV is just so exciting.
Before we dive into Rhi's chapter, let's pause for a moment and discuss the importance of it. Because the whole time reading it, I was on the edge of my seat, waiting for something huge to occur, like Rhi getting hurt, Riddic dying, etc. And when that didn't happen, I was kind of like, okay. And then going into Imogen's chapter, I had a total false sense of hope. And then we get her second signet. We get Quinn dying, plus her interactions with Garrick. It feels so jam-packed. But going back into Rhi's chapter now and thinking about it, it feels so rich in character development as well as integral for us to know who is where on the battlefield. Plus, Riddic freezes a fucking wyvern, which yes, we will talk more about in a moment. Getting this chapter and seeing Rhi's leadership in real time, it really gives us an appreciation for her military tactics that Violet is less inclined to do and think about in her POV. We also see Rhi giving orders in real time. And I'm not gonna lie, this is my favorite part of this chapter is seeing her and Fierg's relationship around it. We're so used to a curmudgeon-y Tarn or sassy Andarna or the give no fucks ruthless Sigale. So when seeing how Fierg coaches Rhi, pushes her to be the best leader and strategist, and how she takes orders from Rhi, which is something we really don't see with dragons very often, it just shows how born for leadership Rionan is. On this note, I could absolutely see Rhi being an advisor for Violet next book along with Arik. I could see that happening.
I could see that too. I also love about how this chapter really illustrates Rhee's internal battle with being a squad leader, being a military leader, and being a friend to those who she has in battle right now. As she thought about with Violet, you know, where it's like she is only one life, and as much as I love her, I can't put her over everybody else. Every single one of these civilians deserve that same kind of protection from me that I want to give to my best friend.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested to see how that's going to play out in the future. And it really just makes her character so much more 3D just in this one chapter where, again, not a crazy a lot happens, but it gives us a lot of perspective into these other side characters and what they're dealing with. So, yeah.
Well, and it makes me wonder who we're going to get next book. I'm assuming we're definitely still going to get primarily Violet. I think we're going to get more Zaden just with him being gone. I could see us getting Rhee and Imogen, maybe even Dane POV's chapter next book.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine a Dane POV?
I am wearing a Daddy Atos shirt way too hard right now to imagine that. I'm so like...
That wrong Daddy Atos here. You have to wear that with shame just like I do right now,
No, it has
okay?
the codex on the side. No, it's Dane. It's God fucking damn
No,
Dane.
no. Turn to the other one. World's best dad. You are not allowed to change what that shirt means. You have to suffer along with me as I wear my Jack Barlo shirt. Let's pull out the highlights from Rhee's chapter. Protecting the pass are Rhee, Sawyer, Riddic, and their dragons, plus second squad flyers, Marin, Kat, Nev, and Bragan on their griffins. Rhee learned her lesson from the Orisha attack. When the dragon riders fought the wyvern too close to the city walls, and when the wyvern fell, they crashed into the structures. So this time, she's ensuring they engage in the fight a little ways away from the cliffside. So when they take the wyvern down, they don't come crashing into the cliffs and onto the poor civilians going up the path. It's these 7 against 17 wyvern who have broken away from the rest of the horde and moved past the city defense, just as Theophony had been taunting Violet. Rhee's orders are for the drift to stay closer to the cliffs and protect the civilians because the griffins have better maneuverability by the cliffs and tons of rooms to use. That makes absolute sense.
I love the moment where Rhee is giving the order and Kat fights back and Rhee's like, God, every fucking time. It just feels so on brand. I loved that bit of info.
Meanwhile, the 3 riders and their dragons will take on the wyvern head first. Then the coolest thing in this chapter happens. Aetrum, Riddic's dragon, flies vertically, then rolls to put his spine and therefore Riddic up against the wyvern. Holding onto his dragon with one hand, people, Riddic reaches to touch the wyvern and the wyvern shrieks, "Ah!" And a paler shale of gray spreads along its scales, coming from Riddic's hand. This causes the wyvern to stop moving, and it falls, and then it cracks in half when it impacts the rocky terrain. Wow, just wow. We just saw Riddic use his ice-wielding signet like he froze the orange. Remember how he said he's been training his signet, and he demonstrated how he can freeze the water inside something? Well, here it is in action in the most badass way possible. This is so cool how Riddic can do this to a wyvern. This is such a big level up from freezing the inside of a fruit. Like, this is a dragon-sized wyvern. I do want to quickly address a theory this action of Riddic's has ignited, as it can be perceived as a big piece of evidence that Riddic is Venin. This kind of does read as Riddic draining the wyvern, especially with the descriptions about how he touches the creature and then it turns a paler shade of gray. However, I really do think it's safe to presume this is him freezing the wyvern from the inside out, having already been primed for Riddic telling his friends that he really is this powerful and has been training. Like all our second squad characters, their signets are growing more powerful as they train and keep learning about what they truly can do with them. Plus, Rhee noted that the wyvern cracks on impact, which to me is the definitive way of saying he froze it without actually saying it. 7 out of the 17 wyvern get through these dragons' defenses, leaving the griffins and flyers to attack and protect the cliffs. So the dragons go to regroup in a shield formation because, after all, strength is in the whole, not the individual.
This right here is another big reason behind this chapter. When we're in Violet's POV for so long and she's with Taryn, they're going against orders, it's easy to feel like it's her against the world. And it's hard to remember that the strength is in the whole. And I really do think that at the end of the day, that is such a lesson of this book. I mean, we got it back in Iron Flame where Violet finally told her second squad about what secrets she was keeping. And it was like, oh my God, I feel so relieved. Then we get it again here. And it's just like that hammering home that like we're stronger together.
Yep. All right, friends, in the signet power segment of the episode, let's move to the power of precognition by turning our full attention to important foreshadowing moments for the rest of this book, as well as speculations for books 4 and 5.
During Zaden's dream, we get another mention of Berwin being, quote, freakishly young. I'm just sitting here, I'm waving my hands like Lexi was doing during the storm dance. I don't know what this means, but we need to pay attention. I don't think that this is just him being notified as that immortal, where it's like, oh, he's so young for how old he seems. But no, it's like, I feel like there's something definitely more here. I just don't know what it is, and it's driving me crazy.
During the Drathus strategy meeting, Zaden says, quote, Panchek has already launched to request reinforcements. Boo! You suck, Panchek! He's not going to get reinforcements. He's going to meet up with the Venin. I'm also now very hung up on how this is working with his dragon. Because if Panchek is a Venin and controlling his dragon like Jack has been doing, first of all, his dragon would have cloudy eyes. And I don't know, I feel like the other dragons would be on high alert after all that happened with Bade. Plus, Zaden can sense other Venin unless they're a sage or maven. And Panchek doesn't come off as a sage with the way Berwin, who is a sage, talks down to him. So why is his dragon being like, okay, let's go see the Venin? I'm sure that there is a reason, and I want to ask Rebecca
it's
what
on
that
the
reason
list.
is. More foreshadowing for Zaden and Violet to get married next episode. Trissa snaps that cadets, like Violet, belong in formation, not battle planning. And Zaden retorts that Violet belongs by his side and to, quote, remember that. Which leads to Brennan mumbling about understanding the consort missive from Davarelli. And then Violet thinks, quote, the compliment and the pressure of it aren't lost on me. Zaden is not only preparing Violet to be in a leadership position, he's also preparing all those around him so that when it's her turn to lead, they'll be more likely to accept her. Emphasis on more likely. I can't wait to speculate how she might not actually be accepted starting next book in the next episode. Then we have all the Dane and Sloan shipping foreshadowing. We already talked about it, but I just had to plug it in right there in big capital letters.
Molvik is seen flying south away from the conflict. And while Violet and Taryn are both very much like, what the fuck, we will learn that the advanced party from Zelna, the soldiers, arrived at the port of Sodra by accident instead of Corden. And thank goodness for it, because it means they're a hell of a lot closer. But Auric knew that they were off course, so he flew to bring those soldiers to battle.
Dane sees Garrick distance walk, and he says, quote, just tell me later how the fuck Garrick and Crod disappeared into thin air. He will also see Imogen wield her second signet next episode. And the marked ones don't feel like they can trust him enough to keep these secrets, but they have no choice in the midst of all this. It's like, okay, I either die or he gets to see my second signet. So it will be interesting how next book Dane handles this information. I assume he'll be filled in, or he'll just guess the second signets. And he'll be further indoctrined into this group of people he had initially been so against back in Fourth Wing and even the first part of Iron Flame.
Well, and I think that this could even be foreshadowing for Sloan getting a second signet, because if they are going to be romantically involved, he will also have to, see her have a second signet most likely. And I think that this could be almost priming him for dealing with another level of the secret.
Maybe, yeah. Also along the lines of Garrick distance walking, he is so exhausted before the battle truly begins from going all over the continent. Once we get to Imogen's POV chapter, he will be nearing burnout, which is a big piece of supporting evidence that he will be the new Venin brother because he is so close to burnout but needs more power. I know Nicole and I have been very adamant about it being Bodie. We will definitely go into all of the possibilities next episode, as well as the big issue with it being Bodie because, yeah, there's a big hang up. We've donned our signets, so now let's tap into our mind of a scribe and examine the meaning of key epigraphs from this stretch of chapters. The only thing I have here is an observation from chapter 59's epigraph that states,
quote, it was not without risk that the first dragons bonded humans, for though they clearly hold the power, their bonded riders made them the one thing they could not tolerate, vulnerable. Many dragons suffered the loss of their bonded riders in the name of self-preservation. This is from The Sacrifice of Dragonkind by Major Deandra Naveen.
Later in the stretch of chapters, Taryn will want to prioritize Violet's life over Tiny's, and she'll have to convince him to save the other dragon, if only for Violet's sake to save Meera. I feel like we've already known this about Taryn, but it's important to remember how unique his bond is with Violet, and it reinforces how his bonds are stronger than other dragons' bonds. He may be the fiercest and the biggest, baddest dragon out there, but he's also let himself be vulnerable with his close connection to his humans, especially Violet here. And it kind of feels like foreshadowing for the future, how he might sacrifice himself for Violet somehow, some way. This would also mean Sigale dying, and I can't imagine him sacrificing her too, so there would have to be some storytelling nuances to work out.
Taryn's still number one on my bet for who's going down in book 4, but that's not the bet we're making today. It is time for us to step into the archives, where each episode, Lexi educates us all on a world-building topic to help us better understand this world and the religion within it.
Okay, who is ready for today's archives topic that is long anticipated? It is the Temple of Dune and dedication. First, a very quick reminder of who Dune is. She is the goddess of war and strength. And when it comes to dedicating oneself to Dune, she is one of only 2 deities, at least here on the continent, whose dedication is a lifetime commitment. This is because war changes a soul irrevocably. Dune teaches that while battles may be won by the strongest warriors, they may also be lost by the weakest. In Navarre, near Basgiath is where we know Dune is especially favored, which makes sense since the War College places higher emphasis on the goddess of war, as well as Malak, the god of death. Umbriel is the isle that worships Dune, and they've built their society that embraces and prioritizes her values, such as strength. Overall, the goddess Dune teaches that while battles may be won by the strongest warriors, they may also be lost by the weakest, so both must be tested, which is pretty cool how that fits in with both cultures. Navarre with how the Writer's Quadrant is set up to weed out the weakest link, and Umbriel with what we know of the trials. If you need a refresher on Dune and the other deities, check out our episode 4 archives, and for the Umbriel combat trial that reflects Dune's values, we've got episode 6's archives for you. While we know that there are more than just the temples we've seen in the story, Umbriel's primary temple and the Aretian temple are the 2 temples we know the most about. So what do these 2 temples in very different cultures have in common? Both temples have a high priestess that wears a long pale blue robe with a sword sheathed at her hip, and they have a tattoo of Dune's emblem inked into her forehead, which is 2 crossed swords gripped in the center by a kala. These high priestesses can not only see the path Dune has chosen for someone, but also if someone's path is still uncertain, like Violet's. I'm not sure if this sight, so to speak, comes from a connection with Dune herself, or it's part of their powers from becoming high priestess, or even from the drugs these high priestesses are known to take, which apparently give them hallucinations. To quote the high priestess of Umbriel, "I still see us among your potential paths, should you choose to take it. Dune will accept you. It is not too late to choose her." And according to Major Rory's Guide to Appeasing the Gods, quote, "Becoming high priest or priestess is the closest most of us will get to touching the power of the gods. The rest are riders." We can assume this means they have some kind of additional powers we just don't know about yet. Like we talked about a few episodes ago, we're not sure how these powers differ between Umbriel, which supposedly does not have magic, and the continent, where the attendants dye their hair white and it doesn't turn silver during the process of dedication. Violet questions Theophony about how she had immeasurable power on Umbriel and it still wasn't enough. Again, I'm not sure how that works with the Isle not having magic. These references to power might just be the status way instead of the magical way, though I'm sure there's some magic involved because, again, hair turns silver on Umbriel. Moving on to temple attendants, this is where we find the most obvious difference between the 2 temples. Umbriel temple attendants are described as having all different heights, shapes, genders, and skin tones, but their hair color is as uniform as their blue robes. This includes the children at the temple who wear light blue tunics, but their hair is silver, not gray, not white, silver, just like Violet and Theophony. Aretian temple attendants, on the other hand, have white hair that has been dyed using lye and the juice of the manwasa flower. We're assuming this is because the processes for dedication is different on the continent versus Umbriel, so they dye their hair white as a symbolic representation of this dedication to Dune. Before we move on to dedication itself, here's what we know about Umbriel's primary temple. We get the most description about this temple. It's located in the capital city of Estel and has stood for 700 years. It's a large temple, the height of Tarn, that has a roof tiled the same pale blue as the rest of the city, and the 6 wide pillars holding the front are all gray granite. The polished stones appear almost silver in the light, and each has been carved with a different symbol of warfare: sword, shield, fire, water, claw, and book. Beside that pillar is a tall sculpture of the goddess. She holds a sword pointed in our direction in her left hand, and a shield protecting the right edge of her temple in the other. Her long hair is braided down one side of her torso, and she's dressed in long belted robes with an armored chest plate. Okay, let's dive into dedication. Friends, this section might be shorter than you may hope, but that's because I want to reiterate we just don't know that much about dedication yet. Like, for instance, we don't know the specifics on how the dedication process works or what exactly is involved when it's performed. But we do know that dedications can only be completed on people whose futures are certain. The practice of dedicating a child was outlawed in Navarre in the 200s and even earlier in Pormil. Per Public Notice 200.417, guardians are no longer permitted to dedicate children in service to their favorite deity. The decision to serve the gods for life must be made after the age of majority and of one's free will. Parents used to dedicate their infants to a particular deity's service because they thought the touch of the god would help that child. In Violet's case, it's presumed that her father tried to dedicate her to Dune to fix her chronic illness. We've speculated a lot on this podcast what it means to be dedicated. Like in this case of dedicating a child to Dune, does that child gain strength and health that would fix a child? We just don't know yet. When you're dedicated, it's implied that you have a yearning for temple. I interpret this as the temple and the deity calling to you, where you feel that pull and that longing because maybe it makes you feel whole. Again, that's only how I understand this. According to the High Priestess of Umbriel, the touch of a deity usually creates such longing that you can't help but return. So because incomplete dedications also mean you're touched by the god, it's presumed people partially dedicated are also called to temple. However, we have not experienced this longing for temple from Violet's POV, which brings us to incomplete dedications, like Violet. What this means is that the priestess starts the process of the dedication, but then it is revealed that the child's future is uncertain and the individual still has potentially dangerous paths to choose from, so the rest of the dedication is refused. I believe that it's not so much about any paths being available for the individual, but rather if one of the paths is too risky for Dune to accept. Like in Violet's case, the priestess foresaw her, or Zaden, turning Venin, and therefore her full dedication was refused. An incomplete dedication still means that you are touched by the god. An incomplete dedication also results in hair that fades into silver tips regardless of length. Violet only sees one other girl with hair like hers on Umbriel, so it seems safe to say this is very uncommon. Partially dedicated people, again like Violet, can still be accepted and earn mentorship from Dune's attendants. It's also important to note that there is no goddess more wrathful than Dune. It is known that entering her temple will slice the soul from any attendant who has shunned her grace. For instance, if you are dedicated to Dune and become Venin, you can be killed when you so much as touch material from her temple, like a dagger made of stone from the temple perhaps, and it is painful for those who are shunned to never be allowed to return to temple, knowing that it would sever the very thing that keeps them untouchable now. So, by turning Venin, you lose your soul that was dedicated to Dune, and she basically curses you because she doesn't like that. And now you're kind of trapped between two worlds, a former priestess of Dune who will always feel the ghost of what you once were and the higher power you were dedicated to, and a dark wielder, where you've tapped into the earth's magic and forsaken yourself and your god to become more powerful. But only those touched by the gods, like Violet, who is partially dedicated, can wield the god's wrath. So only Violet can wield this temple stone dagger against Theophony, kind of like Dune channeling her rage into Violet to get revenge on Theophony for forsaking the goddess. And that, friends, is everything we know about the Temple of Dune and dedication. I hope this maybe kind of helped.
Let's close out this episode with taking flight with our favorite moments. I can't believe I only get to say that one more time. Oh my gosh. I love how Violet says that the shield Garrick is holding would crush her under its weight and size. And yes, under its natural weight and size, but thanks to a wielder who can make small things big and big things very small, Violet is wearing many, many scales in the form of her armor. Look, I love Brennan. But what the actual fuck is he smoking when he says the line, quote, "I know she's a maven, but is she more powerful than you?" You meaning Violet. Yes, Brennan, a maven is much more powerful than a second-year cadet. No offense, Violet. Again, where is this brilliant tactician, Brennan?
I love the code word for Garrick to go distance walking through the continent. Zaden asks him, "You up for a little walk?"
In the assembly meeting, Sloan starts trying to throw hands and Dane holds her back. Pissed, she flings 2 punches his way and he allows them to land before whispering something in her ear, which causes her to calm down and to nod at him. I love every second of the Dane and Sloan tension in this book.
I love how Rebecca balances Violet feeling her emotions and having to be on for these high-stakes scenes. Like when she knows Meera will live, she gives herself 3 seconds to feel everything. And Rebecca writes it where you're with Violet counting down and feeling all of that, then having to get her head back in the game. Then how Violet gets in the zone as a writer, as a warrior, quote, where I am no longer a sister, a friend, or a lover. I exist only as a writer, a weapon. Just love this writing so much.
I love that Theophony mentions how wyvern take forever to generate. Not only do I weirdly find this hilarious, because I think it's so funny that she just sees a wyvern dropping and she's like, damn it, that took me so long. But I also love getting this extra insight into how wyvern are created, or I guess the timeline of their creation.
It's also an interesting insight into how long the Venin have been planning these attacks. We still don't know how long is so long that Theophony is referring to, but it's good insight for us as we understand the Venin's escalated invasion of the continent and how they've been strategizing.
Fierg coming in with the hard-hitting lines. Quote, acknowledging your fear for the lightning wielder does not compromise you. Ignoring it does. Accept the emotion and move on. Fierg would love my therapist. I'm going to be straight up honest. They'd be besties. Then we get some Fierg sass. When Rhi warns her that they're plummeting to the ground while Fierg is busy attacking a wyvern, Fierg says, quote, your situational awareness never fails to leave me awestruck. And of course, when they see 17 wyvern and Rhi thinks, this is a little menacing, Fierg comes back with, quote, then let us be menaces. Chills.
All right, friends. Thank you so much for listening to episode 11 of our Onyx Storm Deep Dive.
We will see you again next Monday for episode 12, where we're covering chapters 62 through 66, aka the last episode of Onyx Storm. I simultaneously feel like we both just started this deep dive and we've been doing this deep dive since December because we kind of have been.
Our heads have been very in Empyrean for a long time, and it's been so much fun. And we're also so excited for the next book series we're covering, which is the Kindred's Curse Saga by Penn Cole, starting with book 1, Spark of the Everflame, on May 5th, 2025. The link to get the book is in the show notes. We would love to give the biggest warm welcome to our newest Iron Squad members. Nicole, take it away!
Thank you so much for joining Raina D, Tanya C, Katie R, Lauren S, Mandy, Emily D, Amy M, Julia L, Kimberly G, Mary, Catherine B, Nicole H, Danielle H, Kaylin W, Caitlin, Courtney K, and Emily H. Welcome.
We're so happy you're here. We appreciate you so much. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for supporting the show. And if you're like, hey, I want my name shouted out on the podcast and to be showered with all the love too, join our fan club at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes.
Thank you, as always, to our resident scribe curator, aka our content researcher, Brooke, and our executive producer, aka our sanity manager, Hayden. We love you guys. We don't know what we'd do without you.
We are very active on social media, so please be sure to give us a follow on Instagram and / TikTok at Fantasy Fangirls Pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you definitely should be for these t-shirts that we're wearing today. It would make our day if you hit that subscribe button to keep following along.
While you're hitting buttons, go ahead and hit the 5-star button on whatever podcasting platform you are listening on. And if you're feeling like just good deeds, you want all the good deeds, all the good karma, write a little love note in the review section. And please don't just do this for this show. Do it for any show you listen to. It is so helpful for your friends who are podcasters. And last but not least, share this episode with your fellow Onyx Storm friends. If you also were like, eyes here, Daddy Atos, excuse me? Then this is a great episode, especially because I'm wearing a Daddy Atos shirt that absolutely is for Dane Atos.
No! You are not allowed to end on that note. That does not count. Everybody back me up here. Okay, now we can sign off.
Bye!
Does not lead to a... Oh my God, literally, I can't read properly right now. And now it's time for her to trust her friends with other people's lives. I was so proud of that.
That was really good. That was good.